Hello everyone, I am Arpit Gupta. Welcome to this special session on driving digital transformation through citizen-centric e-governance. India is witnessing comprehensive transformation in all spheres of the economy by adopting emerging and digital technologies across the sector to make the country a 5 trillion economy by 2025. The e-governance initiatives should be citizen-centric and bring ease of life for common citizens. The need for right and optimum use of e-governance initiatives felt largely, especially in the post-COVID era. During the pandemic, digital adoption has taken a quantum leap at both the government and the public sector organizations level to increase transparency and accountability. On behalf of ET Government, the Economic Times, I welcome all of you to this special session. To lead the panel, I'm joined by a very eminent set of panelists. Please join me welcoming Mr. Amod Kumar, Deputy Director General, Unique Identification Authority of India, Government of India. I welcome Ms. Iti Pandey, Chief Commercial Manager, Passenger Services, Central Railways, Government of India. I also welcome Mr. Manmeet Singh, Chief Program Officer, National Urban Digital Mission, National Institute of Urban Affairs. And last but not the least, I also welcome Mr. Vidura Gamini Abhaya, Senior Director, Solutions Architecture, WSO2. Let's begin the conversation, sir. My first question to Mr. Amod Kumar: what are the current challenges in making the citizens and governments digitally empowered? Over to you, Amod, sir.
Thank you, Arpit. UIDI's core job is to create an infrastructure, a digital infrastructure of trust around digital ecosystem. Aadhaar, as you know, the meaning of Aadhaar is foundation. So we make Aadhaar, and which is the foundation for digital India. Put it very simply, what we do is we say that X is X, and we say it with confidence by taking the biometrics or mobile OTP of X and authenticating it real time 24/7 that X is X. And then every agency, anybody in India can use this service, and it is almost free. Why I'm saying almost free? Because for all government agencies, any authentication or any verification we do is free. For private bodies, it is 50 paisa per authentication, yes, no authentication. And you can understand the level of use of our foundation in creating the digital buildings. Every day we do roughly 60 million authentications. So every day, not in a month, not in a year, but every day 6 crore times we authenticate that X is X. And now that X is X, you can pay him or her something, you can receive something, you can certify something. So they are different. You can give that person some ration, you can give that person some DBT, you can give some micro ATM payments. So basically our job is create a digital foundation on which this is built. Now, I'll just give you an idea of Aadhaar. So basically, as far as the fintech is concerned, we in Aadhaar payment bridge, we have the number of bank accounts which are linked on NPCI mapper is 77 crore bank accounts. So what it means that for 77 crore people, if they give you your Aadhaar from NPCI mapper and from the Aadhaar bank linking, you can find their bank account. So Aadhaar can be used as a financial address. Out of 140 crore bank accounts in the country, 120 crore bank accounts are linked with some Aadhaar. So you know the two-way thing. So one Aadhaar can be linked to like 3-4 bank accounts. Similarly, but all those, there is only one bank account which is mapped to Aadhaar on NPCI mapper. So basically 120 crore bank accounts are linked with Aadhaar, but unique Aadhaars which have a linked bank account are only 77 crores. The number of banks which are live on APB platforms are 945. APB transactions which have happened so far are 910 crores. Number of AEPS transactions which have happened so far is 1400 crores. number of active micro ATMs for the last month was roughly 33 lakhs. So that is the ecosystem, digital payment ecosystem that is being used for processing real-time e-payments. Now the challenges what we face in making citizens and government digitally empowered. Basically, our main challenge is to make sure that all the people in rural areas, even if they do not have access to a smartphone, can they use it all the services through feature phone, because we still have 40 crore feature phones. So we are working on that. Then of course on contactless for this thing, we are working on face authentication technology. So far our most of the authentications are biometric or mobile based OTP based authentications, but we are working on face authentication, and we already have done 3 pilots on that. So I think those are the challenges which we are trying to encounter day by day, and we are also trying to make sure that this foundation is used in many other areas which are not using it so far.
Aadhaar is something which other countries can also adopt and emulate what India has created in terms of digital foundation Amos sir has just talked about. And the challenges you also highlighted that there are a large number of rural populace that still use the feature phone. I'll now go to Ms. Iti Pandey to understand what lessons did you learn during the pandemic while adopting digital first policy to optimize business operation and processes? Over to you.
It's great to know what the others are doing, but as part of the Government of India initiative for digitization, Indian Railways has started the journey very early. So we have this Center for Information and Research wing, which is situated in Delhi, which looks at all our software programs. So everyone's aware that the common man is the most important man for Indian Railways. And we have what is called the passenger reservation system, which has been going on since 1986. And as of now, we can issue up to 8,500 tickets per second for mainline trains. And we are doing about 8.8 million tickets per day for the unreserved sector, which is your local trains, as we call. We carry about 1 crore of passengers, but during COVID times, everything had come to a halt, except that you had these very emergent requirements of oxygen, where we carried almost about 30,000 liquid metric tons of liquid oxygen from one part of the country to the other. We also carried some 1,233 million tons of freight goods and other requirements of pharmaceuticals, including your grains, cereals, and whatever was important and lacking from one part of the country to the other. Not only that, the Indian Railways was one of the most resourceful services through which the economy was trying to reinstate itself. And when I say that, I mean that we ran many Kisan specials during this period, where there was a surplus, we tried to provide it to the other parts of the country. And that, as a major transporter, we were on the forefront since the other services had come to a grinding halt. The COVID lessons were huge for us. We carried about 63 lakh migrants from one part of the country to the other. Although there was a lot to be said, but we ran about 4,500 services in the face of COVID, where most of our staff had been badly infected and they were hospitalized. And I'm glad that we had these digitized systems in place where, you could take out an online ticket. We could tie up with the governments of the state and provide those subsidized tickets to the passengers. We could also provide them with meals and other stuff. And because we had a UTS system where you could take out a ticket at the press of a button, we were able to issue those 5,000, 6,000 tickets per train within a matter of 5 minutes or so. And we did it in a very short period of time because planning was the key and we were running out of time. That is so far as the migrants were concerned. Now, if you look at the freight operations for India, which is the major earner for railways, so we earn only about 30% from our passenger traffic and we earn about 70% from freight. So if you look at the freight systems, we have what is called the FOIS, or the Freight Operations Information System. We further developed it during the COVID times. So earlier we had very established platinum customers who would come to the railways, book a rate, make online payments. But during COVID, we have now kind of dispersed it to even a small operator who wants to come and use the technology which is available. So not only can he indent, which means to register for a train or a wagon online, he can make the payments also online. He can get the entire information about the route of the train which it is taking, make payments at the other end, make delivery systems at the other end. We have another smart app called, which is also called Smart by short term, where the vendor itself can register on our voice site and get the entire information. Similarly, for parcels, we have done what is called the Parcel Management system. Here we are barcoding everything which gets loaded in the train, and the person can track his or her consignment to whichever end it has to go. Even for the purpose of safety, you must have heard that we've developed this anti-collision device, which is called your Kavach. So in the Kavach system, if two trains are coming on the same track and there is chances of collision, one will automatically brake. Here again, the e-technology is being used for the application of the brakes that is being done. Now, we have a co-panelist from the UDAI, and I want to inform that the Indian Railways is tied up with the Government of India for information technology, and we are now dispersing counters and making available for Aadhars to be updated at the railway station itself. This is another thing which we are starting off, and Central Western will be coming together, and I think in the month of June, that's the deadline, which is this month only, we'll be having these counters effectively working. More importantly, the railway itself has come up with apps like what is called the Human Resource Management System, or the HRMS. So we have about some 30,000 employees retiring every year. To manage such a large force, we have the entire data of the railways staff as well as the officers online. And from this data, we can make very effective, intelligent decisions which are required to be made. We also have the disbursement of salaries through what is called the RESS, again, an in-house module. A lot of you must have heard about e-Drishti being used by people in Railway Board, which is a dashboard item, where you can see on real-time basis how each railway zone is performing in terms of its loading, in terms of its safety parameters, in terms of its punctuality of trains. And because we are a service organization, we have an entire portal called the Rail Mother, with the public grievance part also coming into it, which we are monitoring on real-time basis. So I think that all has got done in COVID times, and it's a good change. And of course, we are moving further.
I'll take this to the next speaker of the panel discussion, Mr. Amanpreet Singh. How has been your digital transformation journey, and how are you mitigating the challenges while adopting digital first policy to optimize business, operation, and processes? Over to you.
Thanks, ET, for this wonderful event. And thanks, Amodji, for your contribution on the UIDA, Aadhaar, the whole ecosystem. And it was wonderful to know the railways part of it. My journey has been almost 12th year of my journey in the citizen services, the services which touch us all, a caste certificate, a certificate of residence, or an income certificate. So we have seen that journey 20 years back. Citizen used to travel to a government department premises. Then Government of India under National Governance Plan launched CSCs, Common Service Centers, where the interaction with government employees stopped, and it came up with a single window kind of a model. 2010 e-district project, Government of India again thought upon state service delivery gateway. That's where the whole digitization started building in. That's where Aadhaar as an ecosystem started to use. We use DigiLocker in almost every transaction of ours, every certificate of ours. We use Aadhaar authentication now. And then the journey moved to mobile apps. Again, Umang is an excellent example of Government of India mobile application. Again, the citizens today want a presence-less. They don't want to be going to a government office. They want a cashless where they don't have to do any cash transaction, and they don't want to be present also in the office. No, they don't want to be present. Now, citizens expect that service should be auto-eligible. As soon as a citizen gets to 60 years of age, his income is known to the government, his caste is known to the government, then why somebody wants to apply a pension certificate? Simply, he should be given a certificate on a proactive basis. That's the expectation from a process perspective, ease of living perspective. Coming to the tech expectation, citizen want Uber, Ola, Paytm, all these things, they want everything on the fly, a quicker one, click on a mobile app and just services delivered. So those are the expectations of citizens, which has moved in the last 20 years. And that's where, technology has taken a great shape. That's where I come from currently, National Urban Digital Mission, where we want to digitalize all our 4,500 ULBs across the country. Every service that citizen gets in the country in urban area should be digitized. That's the mission we're talking about. Some of the challenges which I have faced during my journey and my current journey is a process reform. Ease of living, our honorable PM focuses on ease of living. So that's where process reforms, procedural reforms are very, very important. As I mentioned, if I have a single source of truth, if I have the views of a citizen, what is his income, I can generate from his land records. I have access to his PAN card details. Why does he need to apply for an income certificate? He just goes online, fetches his data, and gets his income certificate without any Patwari verification, without any Tehsildar signature. So that's what the process reforms are there. But I have moved out in the country. The dedicated manpower, the dedicated capacity for procedural reforms is missing. Our states, they need to build on that capacity. We have to spare our good officers in the country to work dedicatedly on procedural reform. That's from a procedure perspective. So capacity is needed, but thought process is needed. From a technology perspective, in the last 10 years, we have developed hundreds of thousands of applications in different states. We have 20 versions of e-districts in the country, right? So now the technology is changing from a monolithic kind of an architecture to a microservices-based architecture. All our mobile apps, Paytm, Uber, Ola, Netflix, they all are microservices-based architecture. With microservices, it's very easy to scale. It's very easy to develop services, and adding on to cloud again enables a faster, launching of services. So cloud, microservices, and dedicated capacity for the process reforms, it actually builds in a future of our country in the citizen services. Now, coming back to some of the challenges, I told about a dedicated PMUs in all the states. The last thing, which is very important, is the monitoring part of it. How do we monitor that a citizen is getting this service within timeline? Many states, they have enacted statutory acts on Public Service Delivery Act that a service has to be delivered in 7 days, 10 days, 15 days, in how many number of days. Second step is, how do we monitor it? Do we have dashboards available? Do we have reports available which calls out in a real-time data that how many applications are pending at a Tehsildar level, an SDM level, or a Deputy Commissioner level? In Punjab, it is aggressively monitored by CMO. In the last 3 years, when I was working with Punjab government, our pendency was 0.5%. We maintained it for last 3 years, the pendency of citizen services. So monitoring part is very important. So people, process, tech, and technology, and monitoring. So these are critical issues, critical, articles, components of a good citizen service delivery of the future. That's what my take is. I'm adding on one point is, under National Urban Digital Mission, we have made ready 9 ready services, right? 80% they are ready as per state, 20% some configuration they can do. So those 9 services developed once, used multiple times. That's another concept under National Urban Digital Mission, which we follow. I want to add on.
Thank you, Manpreet. And I'll go to Vidura now. Vidura, can you please share your thoughts? As you heard Amod sir, you heard Iti ma'am, you heard Manpreet talking about their digital transformation journey. What do you think about unifying customer identities to a single platform? And how can open source software help in this process? Can you please elaborate how WSO2 enable organizations in the transition with its innovative solutions?
Yeah, thank you, Arpit. Yeah, so the other panelists actually shared quite interesting bits of information about all of that. So this problem obviously has multiple aspects to it. I'll talk about the technology challenges that are there in this. So, so in my opinion, unifying customer identities kind of have 2 parts to it. So we are talking about citizens having access to various government systems that they may be identified by different bits of personal data in these systems. they are likely to sort of use different credentials on some of these systems as well, right? Depending on what's being used there. The problem here is there's no direct way or easy way to correlate some of these identities and identify that it's the same person on these different systems, right? Some of the information in one system, for instance, may be useful to another system, but there may not be an easy way to directly share these across different systems as well. So I see this on one side as an identity and access management problem, but also on the other side as an integration problem. So let me elaborate a little bit more about these two aspects, right? So the identity and access management challenge here is how can you build a single unified, let's say a digital identity for every citizen? So ideally, it has to be your digital double for every citizen on that platform. So how can you uniquely identify every citizen? How do you ensure whenever that citizen they are accessing some of the services, irrespective of what government or organization it is, how do you clearly establish and verify they are who they claim to be, right? That's the identity and access management challenge part of that problem. So there's obviously an authentication part of that problem. If we can use a single identity provider to authenticate all the citizens across all of these systems, the problem is solved, right? So I think Aadhaar is somewhat trying to get there as well with its scope, but that's actually maybe not the reality today. Each government department may have still use their own identity solution. They may hold personally identifiable information in each of those systems, and even use different authentication mechanisms and different sets of credentials across these different systems, right? So like I said before, there are bits and pieces of this personal data spread across multiple systems. So firstly, we have to unify all of them to build a single identity. That's part of the main problem. From an identification perspective, I think Aadhaar project has several steps towards that. And then we have the unification challenge on how do we correlate all of this data from the different systems, and who's going to do that, right? Somebody has to identify this person and in the other system as well. However, you can actually use technology and also use the citizens themselves to help with this process. So let me explain how you can do that. If you use a software, something like customer identity and access management system to integrate with all of these different systems, generally the CIM systems or the custom identity and access management systems, they have capabilities to federate into different identity solutions for authentication, right? So that way you can basically have the citizens authenticate in these individual systems, but in that process, eventually you will look at probably building and implementing a single sign-on experience where they can use a single set of credentials across all the systems. But at the start, you can still let them use multiple credentials to access these systems through a single portal. And when they identify themselves on the other systems, you can make it a point to sort of get the CIM system to fetch the necessary data into itself from these other systems, right? So the citizen identifies themselves in the individual government systems, and when they are authenticated, that identifies who they are, and the CIM system makes that a point to pull all of that data into it and build that single profile. So from a technology point of view, you can do that pretty easily, and that is where also this is an integration problem, because these items of data that you fetch are from different. You have to fetch it from different systems. They are from possibly different vendors. So you have to have the integration capability in that CIM platform that you use to tap into these systems using APIs, web services, or even directly tapping into the data sources to sort of fetch these data out of these systems. So this is where I feel a platform like WSO2 can really help. Because for instance, WSO2 platform is built on the premise that CIM goes hand in hand with integration. There's this product called WSO2 Identity Serve, which is our CIM solution that seamlessly integrate with our API manager solution as a single platform to facilitate both these aspects. So Identity Server, for example, is able to fetch these data from these satellite systems by integrating with them natively, or wherever it fails to do so because of some proprietary mechanism or non-standard integration points being on other systems, it can use the API manager functionality or the integration functionality on the platform to help that. So we've done that. So we are currently working with Indian Railways and a few other government agencies in India in building some of these capabilities into their platforms. But we've also helped other governments around the world to solve the same problem. So one example I can give you is the government of Dubai. They've used WSO2 platform to build a unified citizen ID and an e-government portal to unify all their services. So the last bit of your question was about open source software and how it can help. So I'll quickly touch on that as well. So with open source software, the best thing about it is what you see is what you get. There are no hidden surprises with open source software. Open source software in most cases allow you to try out the software to build the prototypes or proof of concepts with the full version of the software with no financial obligations for you. And that, I believe, allows government organizations to do these evaluations freely, independently, and not being influenced too much by a vendor. And then, of course, the documentation and learning material for most open source software is generally available and for anybody to access easily, free of charge, and anybody to learn and try out. This allows, once again, government organizations to easily upskill their teams to use the software even before they start actually going into production. And from a pricing point of view, open source software can be a lot more cost effective than the proprietary or closed source software because one can always see the internals of what they're paying for, right? So you know what you get. And of course, being open source, they are a lot more secure, robust. The source code is available publicly, and therefore there's a whole community that watches over that source code and fixes any security issues, vulnerabilities, performance issues, and things like that that can be spotted, and it will be fixed as soon as it's spotted, right? And last but not least, open source software generally use open standards that makes it very easy to adapt, easy to integrate with other software. And of course, that cuts down by using open standards that are widely known and available. It cuts down the time to market for your solutions, right? So it can easily be finished in a small amount of time. And the other good thing about open source software is that you will never have vendor lock-in with them. Even if the parent company of an open source product closes down, the community can take that product forward and keep it alive. So I think those are the big benefits of open source software that can help in this cause.
Thank you, Vidra, for highlighting the need and importance of open source software. And I'll go to Amod, sir, what Vidra said about open source and APIs. Sir, how do you see the use of APIs to create digital channels and making use of existing assets through services?
You know, in the past few years, there has been a lot of uptake of using APIs for delivering services to citizens. NPCI, NDHM, RBI, GSTN, ONDC, they are all using this to reach the citizens. I think this is I don't know, I recently had a chance to see NDHM Sandbox. So that provides a lot of room for innovation. And all the new startups, new companies can try it out there before actually, because earlier before this, they needed a lot of bureaucracy and processes to try things which they can do straight away now. So the example I can think of is NDHM, then of course NPCI, ONDC. I think ONDC is something new, which I think you will see its impact on Indian e-commerce in a big way, and which uh, And then of course we have, I think Manpreet mentioned earlier, we have Umang, we have DigiLocker, and so there are so many areas which are using it and revolutionizing the way a citizen interacts with government, and not only with the government but amongst themselves. And as far as the payment system is concerned, if you see, we are the fastest payment system in the world. I mean, yeah, and this was achieved as early as 2017. But one thing which I would like to underline here is that all this achieved not only by Aadhaar, but it's the whole Aadhaar is only one of the players. The whole Jam Trinity, if you see, Jandhan accounts which were opened, they are absolute essential. Like even if you had Aadhaar but you didn't have all Jandhan accounts, or the mobile phone revolution, if you did not have the mobile phones. So it's only these three pillars on which everything is getting built. And not and then of course the NPCI, the reforms which have been made by RBI has been a big enabler. If RBI had remained in the same mode as it was earlier in the conservative mode, I think we would not have progressed. And one more thing which I would like to share is that NPCI payments, not all of them use Aadhaar. In fact, less than half are using Aadhaar. So it's not that Aadhaar is absolute essential. Even without that, because now we have this API sharing, it is possible even to process the payments using only the mobile or the Jandhan account. You don't need. Aadhaar helps in uniquely identifying, and Aadhaar helps as a financial address. But it is again, by law, you cannot have Aadhaar as a mandatory document or mandatory thing for any service. You have to provide alternate avenues. So I feel that there is a big revolution happening all around us using this Jam Trinity and sharing of these APIs.
I'll go to Ms. Iti Pandey to understand what are the current challenges in providing citizen-centric services and using digital channels for ubiquity and to increase its reach. Over to you.
So I'll be taking it from where the other co-panelists have mentioned the use of the unique identity for each individual. In terms of railways, that is not so important because we are looking at a customer who's coming to book and we are major transporters. In those terms, we look at the service provision where we require digitization. And I think that we've come a long way. If you look in terms of payments, a freight payment is almost 65% is now online. But for the passenger side, there is a great deal of resistance. So, UPI payments and POS machines, everything's been provided at the counters. But a municipal 0.5% of the passengers are really using it. This I'm talking for your mainline travel purposes. A lot of issues regarding, I think, literacy is one of them. The person who comes to us is not so literate, not so proficient in English language. These are some, and of course, the technology is also new for them. So these are some of the challenges we face in the passenger areas. But for railways per se, if you look at our systems that we've evolved in a long, big way, we have a complete e-office where we've done away with paper requirements altogether. So now, our offices are actually quite green, and there is just no loss of paper. We are working through files which have been uploaded, and we are working in e-office. For us also in acquiring services or procuring stuff, we have what is called the IREPS, which is your electronic procurement of goods and services. So now we have extended this to all our commercial tenders. And we've come a big way in having what is called the e-auction method, where the reserve price of the commodity or the service is not disclosed to the customer. He has to register himself. So like Vidur was talking about a common platform, that is exactly what we are trying to build. When we talk of Gati Shakti and our e-terminals there, the 500 odd e-terminals that we're talking of are basically our goods sheds, which are going to be dispersing goods and services and tying up with other transport sectors to disperse this. That is one way in which technology is being evolved and harnessed for a common platform in the area of freight. In the area of services, we've come up with what is called the IRA EPS, where we are e-auctioning without anybody knowing the actual reserve price. So for all India level, we have a common platform. Vendors have registered themselves. They can bid for any service in any part of the country, so long as they have a valid registration process. The entire payment is being done through e-payment gateways, and the SBI is the only partner for us in this. And I think that is going to revolutionize the manner in which we are at present managing our tenders and contracts. So I'm sure that this kind of transparency and accountability, which comes with digitization, is going to help the organization per se to deliver faster. Because, when you're going to do a tender through an e-auction process, suppose you're not successful, within 12 days, you can repeat the tender without any paperwork requirements. So things are going to move very fast. We're going to be delivering faster. We're going to be more accountable. We're going to have a huge database, which will be available for everyone to see. So, these kind of setups where people had to run from pillar to post, those are now bygone eras. And even a big organization like us, which employs more than 1,200 million people, is all set to move forward. But yes, there is a resistance for online payments by passengers. This is something which we need to look at.
Right. What Amod sir has said, I will take that to Manpreet to understand his point of view. Manpreet, how do you see the use of APIs to create digital channels and making use of existing assets through services?
So thanks, Apit, again. I look at it from two different perspectives. One perspective is typically the challenge which typically governments or state governments or government of India, they face that one department doesn't talk to other department system. Applications are in isolation. If I have to look at the student life cycle, starting from his birth certificate to his Anganwadi school, to his school education, higher education, technical education, skilling, everywhere the application is different. The data, the system, they don't even talk to each other. If you look at a farmer life cycle also, farmer applies for agriculture loan somewhere else, he's getting seeds, fertilizer from somewhere else, animal husbandry is totally different, dairy development is totally different. So again, I'm talking about the interoperability of different systems. That's where going forward, the API is going to help the whole interoperability within two systems. They're going to come in through the APIs. That's where a lot of traction will come in the API. I'll give a small example. I've studied at least 5-6 states. We capture, like Amodji mentioned about Aadhaar, DigiLocker, Umang. Again, we capture Aadhaar number when we furnish a death certificate to citizens. Typically 70-80% it is captured, but it is not linked to my pension system at all. A person dies, gets a death certificate, still 4-6 months down the line, he keeps on getting his pension. So again, the interoperability of two systems, they need to be better aligned, and APIs for sure will have a huge implication. Second perspective of API is my platform called Upyog platform under National Urban Digital Mission. It is built on microservices, right? Now to develop applications on microservices, Vidur would support me that I need to write APIs. That's the future. If I have to make my Upyog platform as a success, APIs need to be written in an effective manner. They have to be managed in an effective manner so that versioning of my system, versioning of different state system becomes very easy to manage. That's where the API system, they have to be managed better. They have to be written properly so that systems are scalable, systems are good, citizen issues are kept to the least. So I would say these two perspectives when it comes to APIs usage in the future. Again, Vidur, I feel a lot of compliment here in the way we both organizations work, and I would surely like to set up our calls in the coming days to understand how our states who use our platform, microservices-based platform, how do they manage their APIs? How do we manage a centralized instance, and how do we manage a microservice? That's what to complement this.
Arpit, I can I add something to what Manpreet also said?
Yes, please.
I think for all the government agencies to eventually provide these efficient user experiences to its citizens, individually each of the agencies are building their own little platforms and trying to solve their own little problems, but this eventually becomes a system of systems. right? And that is where, irrespective of whether you're using microservices or some of them are using monolithic systems or otherwise, all can integrate together and share data across these different organizations and give those services efficiently. And the fundamental thing that makes that possible are the APIs, right? So from each of the individual organizations, you have to have APIs exposed that essentially exposes data in a secure way to the other organizations or other applications that wishes to use that. And through them, only these collaboration and integrations can happen.
Very pertinent point that without integration and without collaboration, it cannot happen. So Vidur, my last question to you, what are the current challenges in making the citizens and governments digitally empowered? And how can your organization manage to ensure the resilience of their technology?
Sure, Arpit. So I think dealing with citizen-centric data itself is a multifaceted problem. So obviously there's the sheer volume of data that needs to be handled by these systems. I think Amod in his first round mentioned the amount of transactions and things like that that they've done through Aadhaar, right? So that itself gives a very good indication of how much data is being stored, being processed, and being transferred through these systems. But that probably is the easiest problem to tackle here, because infrastructure is getting cheaper and things like that are economies of scale. But the fundamental problem, I think, is what we just discussed: enabling digital services by integrating these multitude of systems together, multitude of data sources together, which are essential to providing these services efficiently. So for government agencies to build meaningful consumer-friendly user experiences, the functionality of these systems, that citizen data need to be available. All of these need to be available digitally. And this is where APIs can help, as we just discussed. So I believe most government agencies in India are at this step today, somehow, in some way started to digitizing their services using APIs. So I think the pandemic has also added this additional challenge of supporting remote work, right, in this whole thing. Now the government agency staff may need access to these systems remotely as well, not just while being at those offices. So now comes a different problem with all these citizen-centric data being available online. Ensuring privacy and security becomes even more important, right? So organizations now can't really purely rely on things like network infrastructure alone to ensure security of data. So as a result, you may have heard of these new strategies as zero trust strategies and things like that are coming, becoming very popular as a result, right? So that's another challenge that we have in this aspect. And there's also the problem of omnichannel access. I think the speakers, the panelists actually touched this in their answers previously as well. So the citizens need to have multiple ways to access these services. Further away from the cities, citizens may not be as tech savvy as in the villages, for example. They may not have access to computers or smartphones. And from an infrastructure perspective, broadband internet speeds, 3G, 4G, 5G coverage may not be available at grassroots levels, for example. So however, these services still should be available to even those citizens, just as it is for a city dweller, right? So at that level, I think Mr. Amod mentioned this about the use of feature phones. That uses technologies like USSD codes or things like that can possibly be used to give some of these services through. And then one other avenue could be access to public kiosks at frequented common places, like maybe like at a post office or a local government agency office or something like that. For these citizens may be an option, right? And even things like if they are using a feature phone, for instance, even automated telephone-based services through some sort of an IVR system that automates it in the background can also be still an option in this day and age, right? So there are multiple ways that you can actually reach the grassroots levels and citizens at various levels through the use of technology here. And the important thing here, though, is that the user experience on each of these modes of access can be very different to each other. the real estate that you have on a screen, for instance, you have to think about when you're showing the data to a citizen, right? Even through these multi-modes, you have to still maintain the same services, the same efficiencies at the end of the day, right? And this is where I believe the use of right technology can help in these scenarios as well. We spoke about API management, we spoke about integration. So platforms like WSO2 can definitely come in and help here, delivering data not only securely and it can also help you build different use experiences for each of these avenues of access through the various sub-technologies that are available on the API management and integration features that's on that platform, right? And of course, we spoke about the problem of the no unified identity for citizens across all services as well. So of course, then there's that SIAM solution that I talk about, WSO2 identity server, sort of a solution that can come in and help to unify all of these and help in that aspect, and how that can work with the integration part of the platform to fetch the different information from the different systems to unify this. I briefly mentioned about this zero trust security strategy earlier. I'll touch upon it a little bit more. So zero trust is all about not relying on your network to keep intruders away and placing basically zero trust on every user, every device, every application that accesses your system. So when you implement something like that, that type of a strategy, ensuring they are authenticated, authorized, and verified every time they access a digital resource within your network is very important. So that makes sure that nobody can impersonate anybody else, nobody can steal the data unlawfully and things like that. So a complete platform like WSO2 can really help in providing a single platform to cover all these different aspects of API management, integration, and customer identity and access management. I think compared to some of our competitors, that's where we have probably an edge, because we have a complete platform, and the different products within that platform can seamlessly work together out of the box to sort of integrate the systems, expose the functionality and data, and then also expose these digital channels, APIs, and identities in a secure and an efficient way. So that's how we can help.
Thank you, Vidra, for highlighting your role where you can collaborate with the government. We are almost at the last leg of this panel discussion. We are just left with 2 minutes. So before we wrap up, I'll quickly go to Amod sir for his closing comments. Sir, going forward, what should be the strategy of public sector organizations to deliver citizen-centric services using e-governance?
I think the major focus should be the last man and trying to deliver and use the technologies, whether by digital literacy or trying to reach them. I think because, you know, whatever we are doing is geared towards the last man, and if that person is not able to use them by whatever reason, I think that is where we need to focus. And the second area where I see a lot of scope is the local informal sector. You know, our economy has a very big informal sector, and now with ONDC, if that informal sector can be brought in formal channels and they can do business, so a local vendor of Bihar can supply somewhere in Bihar only, but 2-3 districts away also, then they can get a better price discovery. So I think those are the areas where we can. So far, we have used to make payments the technology or to reach the citizens. Now, I think we should use the technology to make them richer, to economically empower them. So I think that would be my focus in future years.
I think initiatives like ONDC can democratize the e-commerce market in India, and they can break the monopoly of some so-called big players as well.
Right. Right.
I'll go to Iti ma'am for her closing remarks. What should be the way forward?
So the way forward, from what even Vidur has suggested, where, you know, the common man needs to be provided with free Wi-Fi services or other services so that he can access these digitized modes of payment and services. Wi-Fi systems are being provided, given free of cost at 500 stations of Indian Railways. And it started and it's helping us to provide ticket services on app. So we have what is called the UTS mobile app. But for the future, I think that integrated platform with digitized disbursements and somewhere along the line, a tough decision, that, we will accept only e-payments. If we can take that decision at some of our stations, then I think we are going to contribute in a big way to this digitized economy. That's my take on it.
I think with the digital foundation of Aadhaar UPI we already have in place, I think it is not impossible. Looking at the scenario today, the way digital initiatives are happening across the public sector organization. Manpreet, your closing comments. What should be the way forward?
As Modi mentioned, we still have to reach almost, we have only reached 70 crore, 80 crore people till now who have smartphones. So that should be the first intent for building any ecosystem around it. We need to reach to the people who are the poorest of the poor. A wonderful initiative, the normal phone, if we can do something on it. Earlier, some of those initiatives were done under National Rural Health Mission. We need to continue building that ecosystem where a normal, phone can be used for delivery of some services. Then government capacity needs to be built on tech, on maybe an IT cadre, looking at an IT cadre in states, looking at IT cadre in the government of India level. That's what we need to build for building capacity. Dedicated people for procedural reforms, very, very important. Honorable PM had focused on ease of living and Archaic Act. Still, revenue departments use 40-year, 30-year, 50-year-old acts, laws. Those all needs to be, amended for better citizen services, and tech needs to be adopted. Tech needs to be always a facilitator, and moreover, the thrust has to come from top. The polity has to start thinking about how to deliver best services, and looking at how do you get involved at a very, very granular level. We were in Kerala last week, so their urban development minister attended our 2 days technical training of our platform. That's the kind of engagement we all need to look at when we want to drive such projects. So that's what the closing words are from my side. Okay.
Bridging digital divide, I think, is equally important while we are adopting on one side the digital initiatives and implementing technology in a big way. Vidra, your final comments.
Yeah, I think India, the size of the country, the population, and the geographies, different geographies that the population is distributed through, itself is a huge challenge for the government agencies to reach the grassroots levels and provide these services. But I feel India is taking the right steps towards that, and this can be an example to the rest of the world with what you're doing today. And of course, it's not just about the technology. It's about the process and the people involved in this as well. And I think Manpreet highlighted this as well earlier on, the importance of the process part of this as well. But I think as Amod and EP also suggested, this has to be citizen-centric at the end of the day for this to work. Providing them with these user experiences and providing these services efficiently, technology can definitely play a huge role, as we all know. And that's where companies like WSO2 can really help in with providing you with the right technology, the right expertise. We've been in this business for now more than 15 years, worked with numerous governments and industries across the globe, and we carry a lot of experience in this space. So if there's any way that we can help any of these organizations, we are more than happy to collaborate and provide our know-how to these organizations.
With these thoughts, I can only say digital transformation is no longer an option. It is essential for public sector organizations and governments, and that's why they are now adopting new-age technology to support remote work and enhance the customer experience and business performance. With these thoughts, I conclude today's panel discussion, and I thank all the eminent panelists for sparing time and sharing your thoughts and expertise with ET Government. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arpit, for bringing us together. And we learned, I think, apart from the audience, I think we also learned a lot from each other. Thank you very much to all the co-panelists and Arpit as well.
Thank you, Arpit, and a big thank you to all my co-panelists. Thank you so much.